Well, good morning, everybody. You're listening to another edition of the No Nonsense Roundtable. I'm Dom Genova, your host, every Saturday, 10 to 11, here on News Radio WHAM 1180. And as I like to remind everybody, past shows can be heard on your iHeart podcast, wherever you get them, or on NoNonsenseRoundtable.com as a YouTube. And I'm here with, I think for the third time, Phil, you're here as a guest with me. I think this is probably our 182nd show, I think. And a perennial great guest is my guest today is Phil Saunders. He is a ultimate entrepreneur. The School of Business at RIT is named after Phil. Saying he's an entrepreneur is probably an understatement. He is chairman of Genesee Regional Bank, a founder of the Travel Center of America, Griffith Energy, founder of that, Valley Fuel, and involved with on boards all over the place. And you are also a philanthropist and very, I would say, very community oriented. If anybody is, it's you, Phil. So thank you for coming on. It's good to see you. And there's lots to talk about in the banking industry and what's going on with the economy and fuel prices and education, and we have a lot to talk about.
Challenging times is true, and there's a lot to talk about out there today, be it banking, petroleum industry, just an average family trying to survive in what's going on out there right now. Very different times.
Yeah, it's almost for people our age. You're kind of afraid we're going through it again. You know, I mean, you had the Jimmy Carter administration back when mortgage interest rates were 14%, and you got 20% of your CD, and you're looking at this now. Now, you know, granted, you know, inflation, you talk about 8 or 9%, but you know, where is this thing going? Give me your view of the economy, and I want you to do a little retail here. I want you to tell people about the concept of regional banks and how valuable they are.
Well, regional banks really have a great place to play in the community. First of all, they're personable to the community. You get to know the customers get to know the people at the bank. You're not just a number. You're not part of Bank America, Wells Fargo, or somebody like that. You know your customers, you deal with your customers, and candidly, like it's been for 150 years in the regional bank business, quite often you do business with people just because you like them. You know they're honorable, even though they don't have a lot of net worth. You know they're hard workers, and one way or another, you know they're going to pay you back, and they're going to make a success of themselves. So character plays a lot into who regional banks do business with, and the big banks just don't have the opportunity to do that. That's not anything bad about big banks, but they just aren't that in tune with the community. Plus, they're multinational and they have businesses all over the world and deal with 1 billion customers. We might deal with 10,000 customers.
Well, and your money's not invested in the Ukraine. I mean, you have your regional banks. You keep everything pretty well within a regional geography, right?
No, I'd say it's safe to say that most all the business, all the money we bring in from the community goes back into the community. And on top of what goes back in the community, we also borrow from the banking system, the federal banking system, to make up the difference. So it might be 50% local money, 50% money coming in from the government banking system. So basically 100% of our money goes back into the community.
So talk to me about the bank. All told, how many branches do you have, and how do people get there?
Well, we have 3 branches. Mm-hmm. Most people say, gee, that's not very many. And we purposely set out when we started this bank to make sure that we did not have a lot of branches. Branches are really a thing of the past. Not too many people go to the bank anymore. They're very expensive to run, and it's much cheaper today to run a bank with technology than with people walking in the front door, even though we do like to see them. So with only 3 banks, we're now at over $1.1 billion of assets And 3 branches with that, that's about $350 million per branch, which would be very high as an industry standard. I would say the standard is somewhere maybe around $100 million per branch. So that keeps our operating ratio down. Our operating ratio is normally in the high 50s, which is it's one of the best in the country. In fact, as long as we're talking about banking, I'll have to brag for a second. Last year, a Standard & Poor's did a study on all regional banks of our size. And in the United States, we came in 12th in the country.
Wow.
And we came in 3rd in the Northeast and number 1 in New York State. We're the best bank in New York State in that category. And this is done by Standard & Poor's. We had no input into it at all. This is just, they pick up all of your filings with the federal government and they do their own thing. So that was pretty nice and speaks well for the people running the bank. Phillip runs it on a daily basis and does an amazing job.
Now, the thing that's amazing to me is when I see an individual like you. You had very humble beginnings. I mean, you didn't inherit $1 million from your mom or dad. I mean, it all started years ago with an idea that you had, and you were working and talking to truck drivers. And why don't you tell a little bit about that story in this first segment that we have?
Well, I don't want to say that my past history was really humbling. I came from a middle-class family. My dad had a small petroleum business in Rochester. He and I had a falling out when I was like 17 years old and was kicked out of the house. So I was on my own pretty early in life. And if I wasn't humble, I became humble in a hurry. And I went to Hobart College, but in order to afford to stay in college, and I was getting married, I worked nights on the New York State Thruway, and it just opened up. And these truckers would wander in and they say, it's great. They built this gas station. They built a restaurant, but there's nothing here for us drivers. We need repair shops. We need diesel fuel, need a place to sleep, so on and so forth. None of that's here. So in listening to them, it all stuck in my craw. I came home for Thanksgiving one year. I think it was my second year that I was there. And my dad and 2 friends had started a truck stop in Rochester at the Genesee Valley Regional Market. And because he was in the petroleum business, it was sort of a satellite business. And so when I came home, I said, well, I know all about this trucking thing from talking to the truckers. And they were doing a bad job. It wasn't making any money. And he says, well, look, you're not doing very good in college, which was true, working all night long on the Thruway and a couple other things. He says, so why don't you come back to Rochester and run this thing? So I said, okay, and I did. And that was the beginning of a great career.
And from there, we make the progress to all these other companies that you started and being a chairman of a bank, which is an extraordinary trip. Well, we're going to take a little bit of a break now, and then we're going to talk about the banks and the banking business, and a little bit of you looking to the crystal ball and telling us what you see and what we might be in for. Well, welcome back. You're listening to the No Nonsense Roundtable. We're here today with Phil Saunders, entrepreneur, a philanthropist. The School of Business at RIT is named after Phil, and one of his positions is a chairman of Genesee Regional Bank. And so we were talking during the break about inflation, where we're going. We're old enough that we remember the Jimmy Carter administration, where interest rates were, you could get 20% on your CD, but then again, your mortgage interest rate was 14%, and things were a little bit crazy back then. Do you remember? You remember Gerald Ford with the buttons? He had a button, the win button, whip inflation now. Like if we all got together, we sang, Kumbaya inflation that would tame inflation. So, give me your read as a businessman, as a chairman of a bank, about what you see and where we're going. The result of this, and put on the crystal ball. Tell me what's going on.
Well, it's going to last for a while. And the reason why it's going to last for a while, contrary to what our government wants to tell us, it's really all tied around the energy situation in America. And when you got supply and demand takes over, right now there's not enough oil to go around. It would be like in your car business if you only had 15 cars a month to sell and normally your budget was for 30, you'd try to get a little extra money for those 15 to cover your overheads to run the business. And that's exactly what's going on in the petroleum business in America today. We're down over 1 million barrels a month from our peak 3 years ago. And the demand has continued to rise, not greatly, but somewhat. And bringing in the solar and power and the wind, other forms of energy, they really need to be timed with the reduction in the fossil fuel industry, and they haven't done that. And right around this area, we've got 2 or 3 solar farms right now that have been under, let's say, evaluation, engineering studies, getting zoning and local permitting. Some of them have been up to 5 years, and they still aren't off the ground. So that side of the coin isn't moving fast enough to balance the reduction in the crude supply. So this thing is going to go on, and as the supply gets tighter, the Russian thing, yes, plays in a little bit, but not really. That's a sort of a funny thing that happens in that industry is we won't buy their oil, but somebody else out there will. So it's still going to be in the marketplace one way or the other. So now we're talking about going back to Saudi Arabia for our oil, Venezuela with oil, and those are exactly the people that we were in business with when prices went sky high last time. So much is tied to the petroleum industry. You take a truck rate now, diesel fuel's gone from $3 to $6 a gallon. At $6 a gallon, and he gets about 6 miles a gallon, his fuel is costing him $1 a mile. Take a truck bringing a load of produce from California, 4,000 miles, $4,000 just for the fuel for the truck. Mm. That's what it costs just for the fuel to get it here, versus a year and a half ago it was $2,000. So, and everything plays into it. That's where the supply chain gets all goofed up. They also mandated that all of your boats and everything went from the bunker C to regular diesel fuel. That brought on an extra demand for fossil fuel. So on that side of it, it's not going away. And then the people thing. The people thing is a strange one. I don't quite understand it, but we're short of people. Every industry you talk about doesn't have enough people. Supply and demand is kicked in there. So the people are asking for more money, which is the right thing to do, and they're getting it. And that is adding to inflation too. And if you want to go buy something or something, it might take you 6 months to get it. We ordered a hydraulic cylinder for a small trackhoe we have down on our farm. This hydraulic cylinder weighs about 8 pounds. I can carry it around in my hands. And it's $1,500 for that cylinder, 6 months wait for it.
Oh, my Lord.
So the inflation is all over the place, and I just don't see anything in the near future that's going to curtail it. It'll eventually stop, but we're going to be at a new bar. Going back to your earlier statement about when we had the inflation back in the early 70s, I think is when it struck us, and we had oil went off the Richter scale back then and everything. And interest rates went through the roof. I was in the early days of building some travel centers, and I had to live through that era. And I had one mortgage, not a mortgage, but a loan I was paying 18% on, and it sort of took all the profitability out of that business. But when things settled down after a few years, that became the new bar. Nothing really went back down. That became the new bar. A house that used to cost $30 now costs $60. Well, today, a house that costs $200 is now going to cost $300. When we get all done with this, those are the new bars.
That's an awfully interesting concept. It's so what you're saying in essence is that when we had 2% inflation or 2.5% inflation, that was probably as good as it's going to get. I mean, it's like employment. It's like a 3% unemployment rate, 4% is about as good as you're going to get. You're never going to get 100% employment. And so in essence, what you're saying is that this is like water seeking a level. It's going to level out someplace where there's a certain percentage that we're going to get used to, and that's going to be it for the long haul. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. You're not going to go back a year from now when inflation subsides and tell all your people, look, inflation's over, so we're going to have to reduce your wages back to where they were before. We know that's not going to happen. And you're not going to go to the car manufacturer and say, look, now that you're able to get $60,000 for that car, or $50,000, now that inflation's gone and your costs have gone down a little bit, we think you should bring that car price back to $50,000. They're not bringing it back to $50,000, so we're going to live with it.
Well, the incredible thing that I just have a question in my own mind as pretty much a car guy is this thing with the electric cars, because where's the fuel going to come from the electric cars? Well, it's got to come from an electric power plant, and electric power plants are fueled by...
Right now they're fueled by coal.
Right.
And natural gas and fossil fuel. Coal is a new record high price last month. I forgot how much it is a ton, but I just heard that the other day. And that's because of the demand from the power plants right now. See, that's what's going on wrong with this electric thing. You're pushing all this additional electric onto the system, but at the same time you're doing that, you're not bringing on the non-fossil fuel supply.
Right, and any place that has, and we have no appetite to have nuclear power plants in this country. Mm-hmm. But the only way to really solve it is with a nuclear power plant. There's the thing with the windmills. There's not enough windmills that's going to power enough cars. I mean, generally speaking, there are 9 million cars sold in the United States every year at retail, and it's not even fleet. And you try to make those all electric cars. I mean, you got a big supply problem for the energy for those things. So we're about ready to head into the bottom of the hour break with the news, and we'll talk more about cars, fuel, and inflation with Mr. Saunders right after this. Well, welcome back. You're listening to the No Nonsense Roundtable. We're here today with Phil Saunders, entrepreneur, philanthropist, all-around good guy, and at the bottom of the hour, I always like to give a great shout out to the Bob Johnson Auto Group, who sponsors this show. A great place to buy a car, get a car or truck fixed. And they have dealerships all over Rochester and now Syracuse. So when you have an automotive need, go to a Bob Johnson dealership. You will not be disappointed. And Phil, we were talking about, Phil's the chairman of Genesee Regional Bank. We were talking about inflation and the effect that it probably will settle into. But the other thing about inflation, it affects different people differently. When you get to be our age, I mean, you're not, your house may be paid off. You're not looking to go remortgage something. You're not looking to buy some assets that maybe you were younger and needed to buy. The kids might be out of school, so you're not talking about an increase in tuition and whatever. And so that begs the question. I mean, what advice would you give people right now, financially speaking, people that are older and people that are younger? Our audience, generally speaking, is over 35. So you have the 35 to maybe 45-year-old listener, and then you have people like us that are either retired or close to retirement. What advice would you give us?
Well, I think the younger people in that 35 to 50-year-old range that have got kids in college, high school, they're under the worst of the inflationary pressures. And I don't even know if we're really counting inflation correctly when they say it's 8%. If you go to the grocery store, it seems like it's a lot more than 8%. Those same people driving their kids all over the place for soccer games and hockey, whatever sports they're playing and different things. They're gassing up their car $100, and it's gone from $2.50 to $5 a gallon. And the way I do math, that's 100%. It's not 8%. So, and I can list a lot of things that are affecting that age group that are outside of the 8.9% that we're talking about. So they really have to be careful right now. They have to manage their money right. Undoubtedly, all have 401ks, and 401ks have taken a big hit. I have people working for me that walk in my office and say, my God, look what happened to my 401k last month. And I say to them, you just got to stay the course. It will come back. The people that will get hurt the most are people that jump out and do some bad things like sell their stuff right now, and then they're not there when the market comes back. So I think they just need to stay the course and be very conservative now. And it wouldn't hurt to tell your young children in the summertime to go get a part-time job and help pay for their college, because not too many of them like to work anymore. And jobs are dying right now. Kids in the summertime can get nice paying jobs, and everybody's looking to hire them, but which can help support the family during a time like this. Now you take the next age group that are in the 50s to 60-year-old range that basically have gone through a lot of those tough times where the inflation really hits you the most, and if you're now down to just two people in your house, the food bill isn't quite as much. You're not running around with the kids. The gas bill goes down a little bit. You're probably spending more time going out to dinner in the evening, so on and so forth. You might pull that back in a little bit. I'm sure that'll happen with people, because sit-down restaurants are getting very expensive, and it's not their fault. It's the fault of the fact that they're buying high-priced product. They're paying their help a lot of money. That sort of had a snowball effect when the state put in the minimum wage laws, getting up to 15, and all of a sudden everybody was at 15, but everybody said, well, I'm not working for minimum wage. So that became a very low bar, so everybody's working at more than that. So that is really raising the cost of going out to a restaurant. So I think that 50 to 60-year-old range, you might be just looking to pull it in a little bit that way. If you have a boat out on the bay, you'll still go enjoy the boat, but you might not take as many cruises around the bay. And then when you get into, unfortunately, the group I'm at, the 65 and older group, this inflationary thing really isn't impacting us too much. Yes, we don't like paying $100 for gas. Yes, we don't like going out to a restaurant for two of us and paying $110 for a meal, but it's not going to kill us. We're still going to be fine, and we'll live through these times. So that's sort of the way I look at it, but it's the younger people that are really getting hammered here.
Well, and somebody told me once a long time ago, gave me advice when I was a young man. He says, you don't have equity in something until you sell it. So I have a lot of people that are saying, I lost this money in my 401k. You didn't lose it yet because you haven't sold your assets yet. I mean, at some time they're going to come back. And I guess the thing is, if you're looking at long-term, 5 or 10 years from now, if you have your money in your 401k, it's probably going to go down. It's probably going to come up. But until you sell it, you haven't lost anything.
Well, I think it was like 88 or 89, we had the big stock crash. And some people at that stage of the game said, I'm getting out of the stock market. I'm never going to get back in there again. And a lot of them didn't.
Right.
Shame on them. They've lost a great opportunity. And if you look at our stock market today, it's still at incredible highs. Yes, we're down a couple thousand points from the 35 or 36,000 we were at, but still in all, if you go back 4 or 5 years, you're still way in the money. So again, stay the course.
And the thing about inflation, you were talking about fuel prices, which is an extraordinarily important issue, is that it's really a regressive tax. I mean, the person with the 10-year-old truck, 36 gallons it takes to fill the truck, you're talking about $150, $180 to fill the truck, and and that's a difficult thing for people that are on the lower end of the scale, and it just affects those people more than people with some assets, and that's all there is to it. So we are about ready to head into a break, but when we come back, I want to talk about your view of education. I'd like you to give advice to that middle group of that we were talking about, the people that are putting their kids in college or through college, and the different paths that they can take, in your view of it. I mean, you've been through it all, so we're looking for some advice from you, Phil. So with that, we're going to take another break, and we're going to come back after we hear these messages. Well, welcome back to the No Nonsense Roundtable. We're here today talking to Mr. Phil Saunders, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and the School of Business at RIT is named after Mr. Saunders. So that begs the question: give me some read on your opinion about education these days. It's gotten awfully expensive, and different colleges offering different things. And what's your view?
Well, it has gotten awfully expensive, and I hate to keep picking on our government, but they're part of the problem. They constantly bump up the amount of money that they're going to give loan to kids, and the college have played right into it. And if you look at inflation, and somebody told me the number the other day, but I think they are going at the rate of about triple the annual inflation, what the college has been going. So why are they doing it? Because the people will pay for it. Why are the people going to pay for it? Because the government is loaning the kids more money to pay back later on. So now we get into the payback side of it. A lot of kids that went to college 10, 15 years ago, they did the right thing. They worked their tails off, and they said, my obligation is to pay off this loan. Now we got a whole bunch of other people that said, I just don't have enough money to pay off that loan. So they've just been letting it linger out there. Now all of a sudden the government's coming along and saying, we're going to pay it off for you. Mm. If I was one of the kids that worked hard to pay off my loan, I just think that I got a reward that wasn't very good. Those who didn't pay their loan get rewarded. Those that did pay their loan don't get rewarded. There's something in that phrase that just doesn't work.
It doesn't sound fair, does it?
For me. But
I frame it in this way, and see if you agree with this. I look at it like there's an education and there's marketable skill. Now, in education, it can be different than a marketable skill. If you graduate with a degree in business, you teach somebody about business. There are people that are looking for people with educations in business. Fine. If you get an education in Russian history, there's a very limited amount of people that are going to want to hire you because of your education in Russian history. You're going to have to be, what, a teacher? And I think that's what it boils down to. I mean, don't you agree?
I do. And if you look at let's go back to the high school system in America today. All of your teachers went to college, which is obviously what they should have done. So they're always promoting college to the kids in the school class. And college just isn't for everybody. And I can show you a lot of cases now where the kid that goes through college for 4 years winds up spending maybe $100,000 to $200,000 to get through school. And now he goes and he gets a job, and he spends the next 10 years spending a good share of that income he earns paying back his college loan. Now you take the other young man or woman who gets out of high school and says, I'm going to go and get a job in the trades somewhere. Within a couple of years, they're making $25, $30 an hour in the trades. They don't owe any debt. They got a nice job. A lot of them are outdoors in the outer doors. If you're an electrician or you're a plumber or whatever, a mechanic on cars, whatever it is. So there's a great opportunity for people just not going to college, but that's not what anybody learns in high school. And I think they need to be showing the young people in our school system both sides of of the coin. Yes, some people should be going to college, no question about that. There's definitely a segment of them that should be just going out there in the workplace, and they might almost wind up in the same place 15, 20 years later down the road, and candidly jumping into another little phase of the college and even the high schools. Our high schools in our particular college become very socialistic, and I think some of these young people, they go to college, and once they get out of there, they've been half destroyed. The entrepreneurial spirit in them is gone. They're more used to the new thing of where the government's going to take care of everything for you, and everything's going to be this beautiful, mystical world. And we still need people that believe in America, the qualities we have in this country, and physical work and entrepreneurship and getting out and making something happen is something. We just need people like that in America. That's what's made this country the country it is.
Well, one of my observations is that we grade our school systems by how many children go to college out of that school system. Mm-hmm. And let's take, for example, being a diesel mechanic. Now, you can be a diesel mechanic and make a car dealership and make an awful lot of money and never have gone to college. But your technical skill and your intelligence has to be as good, if not better, than somebody who's actually gone to college, because you're being taught a skill. And that's really what I think it boils down to. So there's no dishonor in not going to college and taking up a skill and supporting yourself. I had a young man working for me. He was like 23, 24 years old. He had a house. He had a wife. And she was a teacher. He was a diesel mechanic, a couple of kids, a boat, and no debt. No debt. Never went to college. But you know what? His life was pretty damn good. And I think that's one of the problems, is that we just don't encourage our kids to go into the trades. And there's plenty of trades out there. Just try to find somebody who's somebody who's a plumber right now and see how long it takes you to get somebody at your house, right, Phil?
Well, that's true. You bring up an interesting subject. If you ever meet a young couple, 22, 23-year-old couple just get married, one of the first questions you might ask them is, what college did you go to?
Right.
Why do I have to ask him that question? Maybe he didn't go to college, but it seems like it's the right question to ask. What college did you go to?
Right.
Well, maybe the right question would have been asked him, what is your career? What are your desires in this world? What are you doing?
What do you want for your life, and how are you going to get there? Yeah. I mean, you can get a degree, like I said, in a lot of different things, but not be a marketable skill. Now, you're about my age. I mean, I guess, they say I'm retired, although I really don't say I'm retired. But you have no plans to retire, do you?
Well, you're kind. I'm a lot older than you are, I think. But no, I absolutely have no plans to retire. I've got a lot of people that have worked for me over the years that have now retired. Young people that came to work for me that have now retired. And a few of them that retired maybe 8, 10 years ago. I see a lot of people in that category that their mental skills and their physical skills, they seem to diminish very quickly. I don't think that retirement is a healthy thing. And observing people that have worked for me, it just doesn't seem like it's the right thing to do.
Well, my philosophy about it is that you don't know how old you are. I don't know if I said this on the radio before, but you don't know. You know why you don't know how old you are? Because if you die today, you're 100% old, Phil. You just don't know how much gas you have in the tank. So I'm gonna keep on living like I'm gonna live forever, and someday I'm gonna be wrong. That's all there is to it. But you need something to do. I think people, unfortunately, I see a lot of people that retire, especially from big companies and whatever, and they didn't find an alternative thing to do, like like a radio show or something. So that can be a detriment, and I'm really terrible at playing golf, so I don't do that. So the next, what's the next thing you're working on? You got to be, you're always creating businesses. Is there anything else you're doing?
Not really. I started in the hotel business about 8 years ago. I got 6 hotels now. And
wow.
We just opened a new Marriott in downtown Rochester that's doing excellent. I might add. And I'm finding that business to be nice. I was looking at the apartment house business and things of that nature for a while, wanting to get into a little bit more of a brick and mortar type industry. With inflation, brick and mortar goes up in value. But I like the idea of where your tenant only stays for 1 or 2 nights at a time. And he comes in with a credit card and he leaves. And so I don't get in a position of where I got to hassle people for their rent and everything, because that would be a hard job for me. If somebody couldn't pay their rent, I would probably just live with it until they could pay their rent or they couldn't. So I'm enjoying that industry. The Marriott chain and the Hampton Inn chain are both good chains to work with, and so far it's working out well.
You always amaze me. There's always something else, Phil. Well, we're running out of time, so thank you ever so much for coming in. It's always delightful to see you, and like I say, you keep on amazing me on what you're doing and how you're doing it, Phil.
Well, always nice visiting with you, and you bring up challenging questions.
Well, until next week, this is Dom Genova, and we'll see you next Saturday. Well, thanks for watching this YouTube. If you liked it, please like and share.